today we're going to hear from John on Deepening the Connection, which is a great topic in our time where connections need to be made and people are working from home and feeling isolated. So I welcome John.
Well, thank you for that, Richard. Interesting hearing about oneself. You know, the journeys I did in Europe were amazing, because that's the time I started questioning, you know, who am I and what's the purpose of life, which has really led me to where I am here today. Particularly, I spent 3 months in Greece, and most of it was on the island called Santorini. This was before it was popular, you know, in the late 1970s, I think. And I slept on the beaches there for 3 months, reading the Greek myths and books like that. And it really made me question and explore what life's about. You know, my journey started then. And it's taken me to where I am today. And today we're exploring deepening the connection. So I'm hoping that the session today will be a bit of an interactive session. So if someone wishes to say something, then don't be shocked if this guy in white called Marshall stands up and comes and stands next to you. He's just got a little microphone in his hand to record you on the video.
And this does not go through a speaker. That's the strange thing. So you think, well, why is he holding it? I mean, I can't hear me coming through a speaker, but it's going into the video. Okay.
Yeah.
And do you hold the microphone in front of them, or do I hold that as well?
No, I hold this.
All right. How do we hear the audience? Do they speak into that?
No, we'll hear the audience.
Oh, okay.
I'll repeat the question if I need to,
Right,
or the comment.
Good,
so
good.
It's really more about discussion than comments. So I'd like to hear your ideas on some of the things I'm going to bring. So when we talk about deepening the connection, what is the connection that we're trying to deepen? So think about that for a few moments. What is the connection we're trying to deepen? I thought, you know, Carol led our meditation with it's an amazing affirmation. It's pretty well known, and it's a good one. Affirmations are good for realigning your mental patterns in some ways. So the affirmation was, more radiant than the sun, purer than snow, subtler than ether, is the self, the spirit within my heart. I am that self am I. So what is this I that we're talking about? What is the self that we're talking about? Yeah.
Our higher self, the soul, whatever. Our higher self, the soul. That's my understanding.
Yeah. Is there any other thoughts? Like soul and higher self are probably particularly theosophical concepts which you hear quite often. But there's other languages that describe that state as well. So if I look at myself, who am I? Okay, I'm John Vorstermans, and I'm a bag of bones, held together by my skin. I've got muscles and intestines and, you know, nervous system, blood system, you know, a lymph system. I've got a brain. So who's John Vorstermans? Is it the soul within me? Yeah, Maureen.
I think the spark joined up to every other spark at some level.
So all the sparks connect together at some level. That's the self that you're talking about. Yeah. Kirsty, all right, over here. Yeah.
Well, creator.
Creator.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's another good word. The self, the creator. There's Kirsty over there.
Expression.
Expression. Yeah. And Kim?
mantra, which is, I am not my body, I am not my feeling apparatus, I am not that which is developed between myself and my environment. I'm something other than all this I am.
Yeah, that's a nice affirmation as well. Yeah. So it's trying to reconnect with who you really are. One of the challenges we have is we've been living in human bodies now for millions of years. Well, that's what I believe at this stage in my life anyway. We've incarnated into these human bodies over and over again. We've just got so used to being in human bodies that we've actually forgotten who we really are.
I am the observer who continues after death.
Thank you, Julia. I'm the observer that continues after death. There's many different ways of looking at this, and some may or may not resonate with you. But this is the only way that you're going to find out, really, is by going into yourself and trying to connect with that part that you believe is that self. It's not we're talking now about an intellectual concept. The soul or the spirit or the higher self and so on. It's to really know we need to go within ourselves and find that self within us, to connect with that self. So really, for me, deepening the connection is about the journey to connect with that part of yourself that you're not customarily connected with. From my perspective, that higher self, the soul or the spirit, is always there, but I'm not always connected with it. I'm more connected with my personality, my thoughts. And mostly we're in our thoughts. And where are our thoughts? Where do they come from? Have you ever gone through and tried to explore that? Where do our thoughts come from? Very silent. Your thoughts won't like you being silent, so you must be thinking very deeply. The personality, yes. Yes. They come from either ego, yep. Conditioning. From our surroundings.
External surroundings.
Okay.
Certain thoughts as well.
So.
And those we're with, other people as well. Comment that we think sometimes.
So our thoughts can come from other people and our surroundings. How do you feel about that?
But when you think of the speed with which words come from your mouth that you didn't expect to be saying 35 seconds ago, it's astonishing where thoughts are coming from, isn't it?
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
I was thinking back to our AGM yesterday, this morning, and I wondered where some of those things I said came from. Sometimes you don't know. Like, you're standing here and you're giving a presentation, and you've planned your presentation out. I've got a presentation here, but those are words I wrote preparing for this presentation, but they're different to what actually happens during a presentation. There's something inside you that speaks. And the same with you. When a thought comes into your head, where does that thought come from? Or when there's no thoughts going in your head, then inspiration pops up, as Tim Boyd said yesterday in his talk. Where does that inspiration come from? And that's what we're trying to connect with. So my journey in Theosophy has been exploring myself. Chris, yes.
We've probably all had the experience when we've said something and the other person said, "Oh, where did you read that?" And you say, "I didn't read it. It popped out." And I think that sometimes when your personality gets out of the way, when you're not really sort of self-absorbed and your personality gets out of the way, from another place things pop out.
Well,
And that's what happens when, that's what happens when you're speaking to us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So things pop out. So someone's speaking, I'm setting a tone, and you're picking up some of my thoughts or some of the ideas behind me, and it's creating something within you. So thoughts work like that. Yeah, John.
Before your talk, I went up to the little Lord's Grotto and I had a little meditation, and words came to me. And the words that came to me were the first words of your talk this morning. Where did they come from?
His thoughts.
You know, there's also a theory that there's no such thing as time. So, you know, you were here, you picked it up when you were here, and you remembered it when you were in the grotto.
I had the notion that you are just downloading God's thoughts at any time, and your access to His mind depends on who you are. You know, it's defined by what you're drawing. So that, like the words I'm using now, I'm not thinking which word is coming next. It's just coming, it's flowing. It's as if I've been given access to a certain area of God's mind, and sometimes you've got the same one and think, I was thinking of that as well. And it just coincides.
So keep those in the back of your soul or your mind. So why do we come down and experience life in the body? So I'm coming from the perspective that I believe that there's a part of me that continually chooses to come and live off this planet Earth. Although whenever I'm here, I always wonder why the hell did I decide to come here. But, you know, this is where I am, and it's for, if anyone says that this life isn't a challenge, put your hand up. Okay, so it's a challenge, and it's a challenge because there's things that we resist in life that we have to learn about. So those challenges are giving us a little clue on what we need to learn. Yeah, Brett.
Well, it's just the reason we keep coming back, and that is because we're involved in the evolution.
We are.
Things are evolving, so there has to be a mechanism for that.
That's true. So as part of our journey into human bodies, we're helping the physical world evolve. If all goes well, you know, sometimes I wonder if we're evolving or devolving, but you know, the matter of the world we live in can only evolve with us incarnating back into matter. So that's one very good point, Brett. Yeah. And Clive, you want to say something?
Oh, I appreciate it.
Oh, okay.
Because my thoughts are that we need to learn things, and we can only do them in the physical.
Yeah. So we need to incarnate into the physical body to learn things.
And we're then interacting with the spiritual, which can't be in the physical. So it's both. We need both.
We do. So for me, the challenge of the whole journey is that I've forgotten who I am. So I'm now just reached retirement age, and I'm just starting to recognise that this journey is actually quite urgent, and perhaps I haven't worked out what the purpose of this journey in my life is. I have, I know what it is, but how many of you know what your purpose in this incarnation is in life? Just raise your hand if you know. Yeah. So that's good. Yeah. It's hard to know. A lot of people don't know their purpose, or they think they don't know, and they go pay tens of thousands of dollars to try and find out. And all you really have to do is look at the reoccurring patterns in your life, and you see the purpose in your life, the reoccurring challenges that are happening in your life all the time, and you learn to know what the purpose of you being here are. So it's not so hard. So it's about exploring your life and what's going on for you. There's no two lives that are the same. Each one is different, you know. Yet at a deeper level, at a spiritual level, we're all connected. So one of the theosophical perspectives is that there's nothing in the universe that is not connected with everything else in the universe. So everything is connected. And even science will talk about that. We'll tell you that today. So everything's connected. So a thought I have affects everything in the universe. So, by God, I better watch my thoughts. And you do need to watch your thoughts, in a way. So how do you learn who you are? I'll keep coming back to that question. How do you discover who you really are? And how do you work from that place that is really you? Ben.
First, we have to learn how to observe ourselves.
So first we have to learn how to observe ourselves. Yep, I think that's an excellent comment.
Practice, review, practice, review, practice, review, practice, review,
practice, review, practice, review, practice, review. Yeah. So how do you observe yourself, Helen? Yeah.
Meditation, and then allowing the changes that it brings to our lives and living them.
Yeah. So meditation and observing what's happening in our lives.
Well, in fact, the meditation, from my personal viewpoint, provides the change, and suddenly, for example, in the teaching profession, making a comment and thinking, did I say that? There's a difference here.
Yeah.
Recognising that there is a change. And in fact, I believe that for me personally, meditation has been the vehicle.
Yeah. So for many people, meditation is a way to explore yourself at a deeper level. But there's lots of different ways to meditate. So one of the most common ones today is just simply practicing mindfulness. And what is mindfulness? It's watching the mind. So watching every thought that appears in your mind. And then, so if you're doing it through a meditation practice, you become aware of the thought and you let the thought go. And I guess the end purpose is to try and create a longer and longer gap between two thoughts entering your mind. So this is a simple Buddhist type meditation. Yes, come.
So Boyd gave the perfect example of that last night. You could see his mindfulness all the time before he spoke.
Mindful people often don't say much. There's long silences between their words. Yeah. Yeah, Titus.
I think it's more introspection than mindfulness.
Okay. Yep. So it's a journey for everybody to take, and everybody needs to work it their own way. So part of the self-transformation process is willing to look at everything that happens in your life. So mindfulness practice, put your attention on what's popping up into your mind, and you observe it, let it go. Don't judge it, don't analyse it, just observe it and let it go. That's all it is. But the other part of the process is to observe what's happening in your life as well. So every day, things are happening in your life, and you don't acknowledge them. They just happen to you, and you carry on your life. But if you take the time to reflect on those things, then you might learn that there's something actually happening that is teaching you something. Like the most common ones, and I've often talked about these, is when someone pushes your button, and just you get angry, you get wild, you go crazy, Why do they do this to me? What's their problem? But that's not their problem. If someone pushes your button, something's going on within you that you're not willing to look at. Perhaps it's not correct to say you're not willing to look at, but you don't know to look at it. So if someone pushes your button, It's generally because someone's doing something that contradicts your conditioned view of life. So this is an opportunity to open up and to explore what's really going on within you. This is the opportunity to get to know yourself. And this is part of the theosophical journey, the inner journey is about this. Yeah, Pam?
I was about to say, watching your emotions is important as watching your thoughts, and the buttons that I have all the time, people are always pushing the buttons. And why am I doing that? Because it's becoming the part of the journey is learning how to not react to everything.
That's right.
It's a real challenge.
That's right. Yeah. So not reacting to
not just
things going on around you. Yeah, it's hard. It's very hard. And the emotions are a very valid point. And so is the state of your body. These all affect the way that you interact with the world.
I was reminded of that when I read your writings you gave me yesterday.
Yes, come.
And you said that in the writings that the heart, the emotions, the response, is a faster thinking apparatus than the mind. I didn't say apparatus, but that in some sense there's something more subtle than mind, and it's speaking or is coming through the emotions, through the heart, and you're reacting, and you put the mind to it afterwards. Oh, I'm scared of so-and-so, that's, But in fact, you reacted instantly. It's there. Something more subtle, even in thought.
Yeah, thanks, Marshall. Yeah, Catherine.
I was going to say, sometimes the big picture is something to focus on. I remember quite a while ago, Tim had this saying, and it's, I am the spark of that eternal flame. I am a grain of sand on this beach of life. I am related to a leaf on a tree, and correlated to a blade of grass. I am part of the universal all. How blessed am I?
That's beautiful, that affirmation. Yeah.
And I was thinking, part of what we can do in meditation is bless.
Yeah. Trish?
In your response to the question, what has helped us, for me, it has been meditation. But as a very young woman, overwhelmed with 6 little children, very close together, and a husband. I think one of my greatest discoveries was psychology, but also discovering something that probably many of you have discovered, was finding out how different we all are. And it was a personality study called the Enneagram, which has been a big part of my life for many years, that we are all different. And allowing those differences, I believe, leads to compassion. But later in life, I discovered the 7 rays, and I think the combination of both of those systems have really helped me understand myself, my children, my family, and I'm still learning. So, and meditation. So I just wanted to say that.
They all help to share a little bit of light.
Yeah, absolutely.
Upon who we are at a deeper level. Yeah. So how many people in this room meditate regularly? So that's heartening. So I meditate regularly, and it's the only way I've ever found to really connect with what I will call the I, as Carol shared with us. But it doesn't always happen when you meditate. Meditating sometimes is referred to as, weeding the ground for the crop that you're sowing. And, eventually the crop will grow. But it doesn't grow because you weed the ground. It's like meditation, the insights don't necessarily happen while you're meditating. Rather, they happen spontaneously during your life. So that's why it's good to be mindful and watchful and be aware of them. Now, I want to move on slightly. I want to have a look at what some other people say about, deepening the connection. And I've gone down an unusual path for me. So the first one I want to look at is St. Paul. So I was brought up as a Roman Catholic, so St. Paul, or the Bible, all that stuff, featured quite strongly in my early life, but it's only now that I've really gone back to some of those teachings and understand them at a deeper level. Like this quote is, I have been crucified with Christ, and I no longer live, but Christ lives within me. So what does that mean for you? Or perhaps I'll share what it means for you, for me first. First of all, in Christianity, the word Christ refers to that inner self, that spiritual self, that higher self. There's so many words for it, that God self, whatever you want to call it. So whenever you come across the word Christ in Christianity, that's what it's referring to. So the whole view of what these ideas change when you understand the meaning of them. So this one says, I have been crucified with Christ. So the crucifixion of Christ represented the point on his spiritual journey, on Jesus' spiritual journey. So he was Jesus, he was crucified and became the Christ. And the crucifixion, in a sense, is the point in one's life when you decide to lay aside your, what is often called your animal soul or your personality, and you work from that higher self. So that's the crucifixion marks when that happens in a person's life. So the story of Christ is a common story in most mythologies. It's just not often portrayed as dramatic in the crucifixion of Jesus. So it's interesting to look at the Christian message quite often. And the next one is, for as we have many members in one body, and all members have not the same office, so we, being many, are one body in Christ, and every one members of one another. So does that sound strange to you? Can you translate that? Anyone? Yeah, Penelope.
It's the unity of life.
Yeah. It's the unity of life. Yeah. So it's like saying, look at my body. I'm made up of completely different parts. You know, I've got muscles, as I said before. I've got nervous system. I've got all sorts of horrible fluids running through my body. Yet altogether I make up the member called John. But at a deeper level, we're all, let's put it simple, we're all members of the Theosophical Society. At a much deeper level, as Penelope said, we're all members of one unity in life. Yeah. Maureen.
That to me speaks of what I was saying before, spark.
Yeah.
It's just all one.
It is,
when
definitely.
Beyond self.
As Maureen says, that's like the sparks, all the different sparks, they're all really one. It's a bit like Sir Edmund Arnold's poem at the end when he says, then the dewdrop falls into the sea and becomes one with everything.
It also acknowledges the value of each part in their space being part of the whole.
Yeah, it does. So each part has its place in the play of universal consciousness. So
can you repeat it louder?
No, it's gone. It's moved on. Someone here Murray wanted to speak.
Yeah, where are you?
Right, the first 2/3 of this, what people strike me as being that remarkable idea of that there is diversity within unity and all that within an all-embracing magnificent oneness. But the real magic is in the last part, where every one of us is a member of one another. And that's a deeply Buddhist idea in my experience. And it's almost like the magical geometry of the spirit, to put it that way. In some way, within this body of Christ, this body of a life of consciousness in the universe, we are somehow magically a jewel within each other.
Thank you, Murray. It was very well put. Yeah.
I don't know that thing. I did not plan and I won't remember this.
Because it's always an inspired thought. Yes. So it came from deep within. Titus.
Many members is where different, we think about as a person or one personality, but the personality is built up out of different reincarnations, and so that the different members come together in this one body. And all the different old persons what make up us today, they still can live in other bodies as well. So there you have the different offices. And the people together, we still have a common idea about Christ. So we live in our mind in this one body of Christ. And there we support each other in one and another.
Thank you, Titus.
That's
yes.
how I read it.
Yeah, so there's many different ways to look at it, and no one's wrong. You know, that's the beauty of it. I now want to move on to a little quote from Madame Blavatsky. So I met Madame Blavatsky in the Cosmic Aeroplane in Salt Lake City in Utah. So I'm quite familiar with Madame Blavatsky. I studied and read her works before I even knew there was such a thing as a Theosophical Society. So the reason I'm here is because I'm inspired by Madame Blavatsky. So this is a quote from her from the Key to Theosophy, where she says, "It is only through these births that the perpetual progress of the countless millions of egos towards final perfection and final rest can be achieved," which is, I think, what Clive alluded to earlier. So this is part of the journey. So I'm going to just talk a little bit about some of the perspectives of Madame Blavatsky here.
There's a notion that a God sees everything and knows everything at once, but he's not au fait with being limited. And so he's experiencing even being limited and seeing every possible view through us. And this goes on and on. And so, and a thing that hits me is sometimes I used to commute on a train, and after a while I could almost imagine being the train. Because or when Dad did a certain cough, he always coughed like that. And if I happened to do that 30, 40 years later, suddenly I know how Dad felt. That's how Dad did it, you know. And we get this in apprenticeship, don't we? We do things, we even hammer a nail in the way he hammered the nail in, because we learnt off of him. And so in the end you start to feel, I feel for that creature. I am that tree. I don't really want to cut that branch off. Do I have to? You start to actually feel that you are beyond yourself. It's more,
you're connecting with things around you.
Yes.
Yeah, that's very much part of it. Now, to carry on with Madame Blavatsky, one of her works that always comes back to me, it's called The Voice of the Silence. It's what she calls a mystical work. It's a book that's, it's the smallest book she ever wrote, but it says more than all her other books put together, in my view. But she goes on, she starts the book by really sharing with us what the journey is all about. And so she's quite clear. She doesn't usually mince words. You know, she's, as Tim said in his video last night, she's known as being very strong-willed, and she certainly let people know what she thought of them and what they were doing. So she's a very plain speaker. So what she said about our journey as human beings is that we all start from a place of ignorance. And if you think of how we're born, we're born, it takes us a year to walk. Now a horse is born and it walks straight away. I always wondered why that's so. Why does it take us a year to walk? So perhaps the analogy isn't quite perfect, but it gives you a sense that, we're really born ignorant, and it's very much up to where we're born on how we grow up. So we're informed through our growth, firstly by, our mother. We spend 9 months with our mother before we're born. And in that 9 months, our conditioning to life starts, because we feel everything our mother feels. It comes through us. We hear the conversations she's having. All that affects us. So, and there's much, much more when you look deeply at the whole process of birth. And then we're born, and we find ourselves usually in a family, and then that's a whole new set of, learning to navigate, to learn to communicate, to learn to be with. And this learning goes on and on and on. So we're born from a place of ignorance, and we're born into a life which is very, very conditioned. Yet we don't really usually know that unless we spend time reflecting on it, or willing to look at our push buttons. Our push buttons usually tell us when we're coming across conditioning. So Blavatsky suggests, or in The Voice of the Silence, she didn't write The Voice of the Silence. She just, when she was living with her teacher in Tibet, she learnt The Voice of the Silence off by heart, but not in English. So when she, towards the end of her life, when she was in, I think it was France, she translated it from her memory into English. So that's The Voice of the Silence we're looking at now. So this is an ancient text, really. So she says that the only way to get out of ignorance is through knowledge. So we have to learn things, we have to study things. That knowledge is essential as part of our journey to really know what life is about. But then knowledge is a tricky thing, because there's all sorts of knowledge today. Today you've got knowledge and you don't know whether it's... That's right. You don't know if it's truth or false truth or different perspectives or what. So it makes it hard to just look at knowledge and say, I trust this to be true. So we've got to put a bit of effort into this knowledge. We have to learn to work out what is real knowledge and what is not real knowledge. So that's really hard. So in the sense, that's generally the theosophical journey that's taken. So the Theosophical Society is focused generally on the knowledge side and trying to explore and understand to get to the truth. And for many people, that's where they are, exploring that knowledge side. And this can take you to a very, very, very deep level of learning and understanding, when you really develop discrimination and understanding. And eventually, that inner voice opens up to you as part of it. Truth kind of says we're born in ignorance, innocence, and we fall into ignorance.
And our circumstances, our environment, the way that we are taught to relate to others and to relate to nature creates the ignorance, which then provides our darker side. And that it's only through the inner wisdom that begins to dissolve. And leads us back to the innocence with which we came in. But at the same time, we develop discernment, we develop...
Well, this is what the whole area of knowledge is there to help us develop discernment.
Yes, I agree with you entirely. Yes, I just felt I had to offer that.
Another view is that, before we were born, we were pretty well all-knowing. And then the birth process is a process of forgetting all that we knew and starting life with a blank slate, so to speak.
Because we came straight from Source. And Source is all-knowing. God, whatever.
Yeah. So it's an interesting process. So there's actually another step that Blavatsky talks about, the third step, is when you develop wisdom, or you develop that connection with your inner self. And to do that, she suggests, or she says quite strongly, that you pretty well have to let go of your conditioned knowledge, because that actually prevents you from experiencing the wisdom that's within yourself. So it's quite a step. So she calls these halls of learning. So the first hall of learning is going from ignorance to knowledge, and then the last hall of learning, the third one, is going from knowledge to wisdom. So knowledge is the second hall of learning, and the hall of wisdom is the third hall of learning. So it's quite a step, and they're quite different. So each one of them, you've got to let go of something to get to the next one. So I'm not denigrating knowledge at all here, but the sort of knowledge that we have to let go is our conditioned knowledge, our conditioned view of understanding. One of the marvellous little poems that Blavatsky left with us was the Golden Stairs, which sort of outlines the qualifications or the things you need to develop as part of your journey. So it starts off with an open mind. So you need to have an open mind, ones that are willing to look at different perspectives. An open line. Is it an open line? A clean life, a pure heart, an eager intellect, an unveiled spiritual perception. It's a beautiful saying. Yes, Kirsty? With the golden stairs in them. Yeah. Penelope. It does.
Even take a small child who say, don't go near the fire, it will burn you. They don't really know what that means until they go near the fire.
And they'll never touch fire.
And if they do touch it and feel the heat, they then have the wisdom not to do it again. So it's experiencing the knowledge. That's where the wisdom comes from.
So knowledge without the experience of it, I guess, is no knowledge at all, isn't it?
Well, it's knowledge, but once you've experienced something, you understand it better, don't you?
Yeah.
Whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, whichever way you see it.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the wisdom
comes. It is. So the child touching the heater, after he's been told 20 times, don't touch the heater, he doesn't know what that means. He needs to experience it. So should you just take the child to the heater? The experience.
And that's just a very open example. We're talking about real things.
The experience has got to come from the person themselves. Someone else can't pass on experiences. It's a little bit like I came across this saying this morning. The best teachers are those who show you where to look, but don't tell you what to see. This was by Alexandra K. Trenfor. So, it's all around you. So this popped into my view this morning. So I thought that was quite handy. So that there's a synchronicity in the universe somewhere that tells us what we know. So then, as I said, I wasn't knocking knowledge, because knowledge, taking it to a very, very deep level, is jnana yoga, which is a valid path of liberation. But you've got to go more than just the knowledge. You've got to practice the process. And the same as you can read lots and lots of books of meditation, and it's amazing and interesting. You can go to lots of talks of meditation, and you can be inspired. But it's not the same as doing meditation. You have to actually do the work. And meditation's not easy. If you're just practicing simple mindfulness, all you're doing is watching your mind. And they usually do it with the breath. So you breathe in, you breathe out. So you're really watching your breath, counting your breath. And then you're paying bare attention to the mind. And as soon as the thought comes up, you dismiss it. But how often do I get so caught up in the thought that, I've forgotten my counting, forgotten where I'm up to, and I've gone on a whole journey, and then I've got to come back and start from fresh. But the idea of the practice is just come back and start counting again and start the process again. And over a period of time, it becomes easier and easier and easier to keep that focus. And eventually, you know, your mind stops thinking, where you go beyond the thinking mind. And that's when you touch that inner self, connect to that inner self. So, you know, this is something that I recommend everybody do. If you want to practice Theosophy, you want to connect with yourself, this is one of the paths to take to do that. The most common path to take to do that. Has all sorts of side benefits, doesn't it? You know, you get calmer, you don't get so angry, you don't get so stressed. Because things don't seem so important in the outside world anymore. You don't engage in them so strongly. You engage in them much lighter. Easy to say, hard to do, but it's part of that practice. Yes, Barbara.
It's a wonderful topic, deepening the connection. And as we sit in this room, I'm reminded of the one thing that is connecting us all from the highest living life force, which is one word, and that is breath.
Breath. Yeah. Yep. We're all connected with breath. Yeah.
We have to breathe.
We do.
In our vehicle.
Well, you know what they say when you don't breathe?
You're out of here.
Yeah. But have you ever tried to stop breathing? But eventually you faint and you start breathing again. It doesn't really work. Annie Besant has a nice quote from Annie Besant. Whoops. So she says, the object of reincarnation is to train the animal man until it becomes the perfect instrument of the divine. And that the agent of this training is a reincarnating ego. Brings up a few questions, you know, she talks about animal man. I think she means man and woman.
She just meant men.
So what does this term animal man, animal human mean? Anyone care to guess what she's referring to? Trish?
One who is not yet awakened.
One who is not yet awakened, okay. Don?
Everything pertaining to our base chakra.
Everything pertaining to our base chakra, yeah. Yeah, I think we're getting there, yeah. So in the Theosophical tradition, the journey of evolution goes through several kingdoms. So for the point of simplicity, I'll say, look, once we were born as mineral, and then eventually we were born as vegetables, then eventually we were born as animals, and then eventually we evolved into becoming humans, which is where we are now. And that goes on and on and on. There's many great poems written about this. But within our human body, we contain all the previous evolutions within us. The evolution of the mineral, of the plant, of the animal, and so forth. So when we became human beings, we didn't lose the animal qualities that we had as animals. So the first stage of the human journey is to rise above those animal qualities that very much control our lives. And these qualities are like the qualities of greed and, always wanting to eat, I've got that one still. And always, it's all the qualities related to animals around us. So we all have to look at it as our pet dog or a pet cat, and we see their qualities, All they want to do is eat, I had a cat once and just wanted to eat all the time. Wake up in the morning to be fed. I'm sure you can relate to that. And a dog's no different, As soon as she sees you with food, it's up in front of you. Yeah, Louise.
Yeah, that's right. I was going to say something. When you look at animals, they are the most powerful creatures. You know, they can rip into you, destroy, eat, and do everything that we do with great refinement, which is bad as well. But they are the most powerful creatures. So that I think that the thing of it is to harness that power that the animals have and that we have. And we shouldn't negate our power, but we need to refine it so we use it in a way that is not, and to better it, and so we can better ourselves. So it's like control.
Exactly. And this is what Annie Besson is referring to here, I believe. She's referring to us not allowing that energy, the animal energy or the animal soul energy, to control us. So it's not negating it, but it's allowing it, so it's there for us to use when we need it.
To use it in a good way.
In a positive way.
Yeah, because that's what, and some animals don't, obviously. And we of course say, well, we can't look into everything and do all that. But then we do it with machines, and we do it in other ways, and we do it as well. So, you know, there's, I think there's a lot to it.
Well, in general, humanity is still very much in its animal soul.
Yeah, it's still
so
no better.
Part of the purpose of the Theosophical Society is to be an example of people who have moved out of their animal souls or beyond their animal souls into their human soul or their spiritual soul, whatever you want to call it.
I would also like to say it would be good to train the animals' unconditional love, protectiveness, heroism. We have that potential too, which we don't develop and need to.
We do, yep. Yeah. So we've got a lot to learn from our animal nature as well. So don't negate it. So I think it's you know, it's an interesting point from Annie Besant, who was one of the, you know, the leaders in the Theosophical Society. I just want to finish off with a little story. This is Rumi. Now, Rumi's been a good teacher of mine. And Sufism, which is considered the esoteric side of the Muslim tradition, is very, very powerful. You know, and its teaching method is mainly through story. But most of you would be familiar with Rumi. You see his story. If you're on the internet, you come across his quotes all the time. And this is just one of them. So you can read it for yourselves. I won't read it out. But it's quite a powerful message he gives us there. So I'll tell you this little story and then I'll end on the story.
She's still reading, hang on.
That's all right. Yeah. Okay, all right. So this is a story which is called The Man Who Walked on Water. So it's a Sufi story. So a conventionally minded dervish from an austerely pious school was walking one day along a riverbank. He was absorbed in concentration upon moralistic and scholastic problems, for this was the form which Sufi teachings had taken in the community to which he belonged. He equated emotional religion with the search for ultimate truth. So suddenly his thoughts were interrupted by a loud shout. Someone was repeating the dervish call. There is no point in that, he said to himself, because the man is pronouncing the syllables instead of intoning. Yahoo, he is saying, Yahoo. So do you get that? So you heard He heard someone chanting the sacred Sufi syllables, but he was pronouncing them wrong. He was saying "u-ya-ha" instead of "yahoo." Okay, so the story goes on. Then he realised that he had a duty as a more careful student to correct this unfortunate person who might have had no opportunity of being rightly guided and was therefore probably only doing his best to attune himself with the idea behind the sounds. So he hired a boat and made his way to the island in midstream from which the sound appeared to come. Now, sitting in a reed hut, he found a man dressed in a dervish robe, moving in time to his own repetition of the initiatory phrase. "My friend," said the first dervish, "you are pronouncing the phrase. You are mispronouncing the phrase. It is incumbent upon me to tell you this because there is merit for him who gives and him who takes advice. This is the way in which you speak it." And he told them. "Thank you," said the other dervish humbly. The first dervish entered his boat again, full of satisfaction at having done a good deed. After all, it was said that a man who could repeat the sacred formula correctly could even walk on the waves, something that he had never seen, but always hoped, for some reason, to be able to believe. Then he heard a faltering, "Oh, yeah," as a second dervish started repeating the phrase in his old way. So while the dervish was thinking about this, reflecting upon the perversity of humanity and its persistence in errors, he suddenly saw a strange sight. From the island, the other dervish was coming towards him, walking on the surface of the water. Amazed, he stopped rowing. The second dervish walked up to him and said, "Brother, I'm sorry to trouble you, but I've come out to ask you again the standard method of making the repetition you're telling me, because I find it difficult to remember it." So what is the story telling? Just a quick couple of responses. Yeah, Kate. Yeah, there is no right way. Yeah, Helen. The purpose, the importance of intent. Yes. Kirsty. Don't get hung up on ritual or detail. Yeah.
Don't be judgmental.
Don't be judgmental, Marshall.
You're not walking across my lake while you're fishing.
The main point for me was that it's arrogant of us to tell somebody else how they should do their practice. That's their journey. And that's a lesson for all of us as part of our theosophical sharing. It's not about us telling people what they should do, how they should do it, but it's sharing our understanding of it and allowing and respecting everybody else's perspective on how they wish to do things. So with that, I'll say thank you, and I hope we'll take some thoughts home with you.